everybody? It's Justin. Welcome to Live Ask Me Anything, number 75. I'm sorry, I'm late. I know, had a leg debacle. It's set up, the dog's away, the air conditioning's off, all the things, the joys of live video. Setting up this split screen thing again. I'm still adjusting a couple of things. Sorry about that. Let's make sure everything's running according to plan, because I'm super excited about this episode. This is a really good one. I think you guys are going to love this. There's been a lot of questions about this coming in really more privately for me, because people know that I've been experimenting with this carnivore thing and kind of messing with that. So let's see here. There it is. Okay, I can see myself. Click for more. It's up. What's up, Jackie? What's up, Jen? What's up, Jessica? Hey, 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 hey. I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm late. Let me see. I want to make this come forward a little bit. Pull you guys a little bit closer to me. That sounds cool, right? That's probably good. I think that's probably good. So I've listed some of these red meat myths on the board because tonight is literally just called Red Meat Myths. I'm going to tackle some of the most common red meat myths. I'm going to write this in my notes, red meat myths. Some of the most common red meat myths and some of the red meat myths that just really annoy me. They drive me absolutely crazy. Now, the thing that I realized in prepping for this episode is that there are an awful lot of red meat myths that I'm not going to be able to get to. There's a ton of red meat myths. Red meat's got to be one of the most villainized things that we have, particularly in the American diet. Sorry, just still adjusting a few things. Slide this over a little bit. I don't want this computer to fall on me. This is really kind of duct taped here. But anyway, we're going to jump in. What's up, Evan? How you doing, brother? What's up, Laura? Welcome. AMA number 75, Red Meat Myths. Let's dive in because I am late and I'm sorry. I got to make sure the podcast is running. Yep, podcast is running. That's all good. We're up and running. All right, let's do this thing. AMA number 75. So, as you guys know, as some of you know if you're in the private Facebook groups, I've been exploring this idea of a carnivore diet and messing with it. I'm not saying that's what you should do, okay? I'm not. For most people, the vast majority of the free world, people that don't have a massive autoimmune condition, I think that Clovis is the way to go. I love the 60% fat, 30% protein, 10% net carbohydrate ratio. I love that. The approved foods list is perfect. Yes, I made it myself, whatever. I still think it's perfect. But anyway, I just want you guys to know that that is still what I'm advocating is Clovis, okay? Definitely Clovis. But I like to experiment. I'm the guinea pig. You guys don't want to eat 350 grams of protein a day. I don't mind doing it at all. I have no problem with it, right? I ate a prime rib the other night that was 1.75 pounds in one sitting, and it was beautiful. I loved it. Chewed all the meat off the bone. Fantastic. But I'm not saying you guys need to do that. All right, let's jump in. Now, the first thing I want to do right now, before I get into these myths, is I want to nip this one thing in the bud right from jump. I want to be clear that when I say red meat, I am talking about ethically raised animals. I am talking about 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised animals. These are happy, healthy animals that live a beautiful life. They are killed cruelty-free, and one death can feed me easily for over a year. It's amazing. It's an amazing system. I'm talking about regenerative agriculture. As you guys know, I'm funding a documentary film about regenerative agriculture, okay? So I want to be clear, before anybody starts arguments with me, I'm not talking about Oscar Mayer bologna sandwiches here, okay? When I say red meat, I'm talking about real red meat, as found in nature red meat. I'm not talking about feedlot cattle, CAFO, which is confined animal feeding operations. I don't advocate any of that stuff. I think feedlot, I think CAFO is a huge problem. A lot of the grain consumption, grain growing, monocropping that we have is to feed those poor animals that are locked up. It's a bad system, okay? So right off the bat, we're getting that out of the way. I only eat 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised animals. That is my personal choice, and that is because of ethics. Believe it or not, it's not because of nutrition, because grain-fed meat is not that far off nutritionally from grass-fed meat. There may be some toxins stored in the fat, there may be some hormones, antibiotics, nothing that a healthy system shouldn't be able to purge out, nothing that you shouldn't be able to handle if you're a healthy person, but I choose pasture-raised meat for the environment and for ethical reasons. Regenerative agriculture is a net plus for the environment, no matter what the plant-based people tell you. Okay, had to get that out of the way. Let's jump in. I'm probably going to end up going over on time if I had to guess, okay? So, on to the myths. Now, virtually all of these myths come from two places. If we were to look at like a mafia-style movie where you have like the crime boss up on top, and then You have all his little minions below that, like your one big crime boss, and then the police draw the little sketches of all the people below, and as they die, they like mark X's off of them, right? That's really where all this plant-based stuff is coming from, and this anti-meat rhetoric is coming from. 2 places. 1, vegan propaganda. 2, big food propaganda. Hint, big food companies want you to eat more grains and more sugar because that's what they create, and all the products that they create have grains and sugar in them. So of course they don't want you eating meat, they want you eating more grains, okay? So let's start with, I'm gonna read you all these myths and then we're gonna get into them. So number 1, plants have more nutrients than meat, okay? This is a giant myth. People think that they need plants for nutrients. Not true. There's nothing in plants that you can't get from animals. Number 2, saturated fat causes heart disease. This is a huge myth that we see still playing out over and over and over, even with most doctors. Even some functional medicine doctors don't seem to have this figured out yet. They think that saturated fat equals heart disease. Myth number 2. Myth number 3, red meat causes cancer. So I put red meat equals cancer. People still think that red meat plays a role in cancer. Huge myth. We're going to get into that, okay? The next one, and this is actually part of this cancer thing, is that meat is acidic. So I wrote meat is acidic here, and that is not actually a myth. Meat does cause acidic end products, right? But what is a myth is this alkaline acid myth, right? And I actually did a whole AMA on that, so we're going to touch on that briefly. The other one is that eating animals or red meat is bad for the environment, okay? I'm going to touch on that one briefly. That's going to have to be another, like a whole additional episode, honestly. It will have to be. So the last one is red meat equals fat and or diabetes, okay? So red meat equals fat and or diabetes. What, volume's low? Let me see. I don't know if I can do anything about that, actually. Interesting. All right, let me know, other people let me know if it's really low. Is that for everyone or just for you two? Let me see. I don't know that there's anything I can do about that, which is weird because I'm doing it the same way I do it any other night. Huh. All right, well, I will yell, no problem. I have no problem being very loud, don't worry. So, anyway, volume good here. Okay, I think it's just a couple people. Let's see. All right, where was I? Okay, so this, number 6, red meat equals fat gain, so gaining weight, and or diabetes, okay? This idea that red meat can make you fat or that red meat causes diabetes. This comes directly from the nonsense documentary, What the Health? So we're gonna tackle that. Let's jump in because I'm way over now. I'm gonna run out of time. I know I'm gonna run out of time, but it's cool. It's my show. I can go over if I want to, right? So, number 1, plants have more nutrients than red meat. Or vegetables are more nutrient dense is another way to say this. So I talk a lot about nutrient density. And all I mean is the amount of micronutrients and amino acids found in a particular food, important here, found in a particular food that your body can access, that your body can actually absorb, okay? And I'll often use terms like gram per gram. So I'll say things like red meat, particularly organ meats, are gram per gram the most nutrient-dense foods on planet Earth. Period. Irrefutable. And not only that, but those nutrients have the highest bioavailability when consumed via red meat. Bioavailability is super important. Let me outline why. For instance, spinach has calcium. People like to point out that spinach has calcium. Spinach also has anti-nutrients. These are oxalates, phytates, lectins, all these plant toxins that you guys have heard me talk about, and you know that the approved foods list is an anti-lectin food list, okay? So spinach also has these anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients bind to micronutrients in the gut and prevent your body from absorbing them. So even though a nutrition facts label for, say, frozen spinach might show a calcium amount, your body absorbs less than 5% of that calcium because of the anti-nutrients contained in that very same plant. These are plant toxins, okay? So This is not true of meats, of these animal meats, of red meats. The micronutrients found in red meat are the most bioavailable on planet Earth. We are literally designed to digest meat. We are designed to access micronutrients from meat. Cows can eat grass and extract nutrients from them that humans don't have digestive enzymes to extract those same nutrients. Therefore, the cow extracts the nutrients. We eat the cow and get those nutrients. Thank you, cow. We don't have to go in our front yard and eat grass, okay? This is how it happens. This is also where vegan propaganda really skews data, because they'll try to take nutrition facts from calcium and nutrition facts from some other food and try to compare these micronutrient levels like calcium or things like that. And they're completely not taking bioavailability into account whatsoever, and it's super dishonest. Now, it's not always dishonest. This happens for one of two reasons. Number one is dishonesty. These are vegans that are dogmatic and biased, and they know they're skewing data and they're doing it on purpose. Two is just plain ignorance. People that have been brainwashed and they don't know any better, and your little yogi friend, you know, that does Bikram yoga on Saturdays thinks that he's giving you accurate information when he's Mr. Vegan Preacher. They really think that they're doing good, okay? Now, the thing is, when we talk about bioavailability and micronutrients and nutrient density, vegetarians and vegans are generally at a much, much higher risk of deficiency in several essential nutrients. Now, essential meaning without them you die, okay? There are essential and non-essential nutrients. Essential nutrients, without them, you die. For instance, carbohydrates, non-essential nutrient. You don't have to ever eat a carbohydrate again, you live a long and happy life. It's not essential to human survival, okay? But vegans and vegetarians are often deficient in essential nutrients such as vitamins A, vitamin B12, vitamin D, calcium, iron, zinc, selenium, choline, creatine, taurine, methionine, glycine, and EPA and DHA, which are essential omega-3 fatty acids. Vegans and vegetarians love to talk about how they eat ALA, which is alpha lipoic acid, which they say is an omega-3 fatty acid. So they're saying, well, I get my omega-3s from ALA. Well, guess what? Bioavailability. Less than 4% of the ALA that you consume from something like flax seeds actually gets converted into the essential omega-3s, EPA, and DHA, okay? So again, they're completely wrong about the nutrients things. Now, American studies have shown that even just the one very important micronutrient, vitamin B12, that vegans, 92% of vegans are deficient in B12. 77% of vegetarians are deficient in B12. 99% of vegans, 77% of vegetarians deficient in B12 compared to just 11% of American omnivores. 11%. We're talking 7 to 9 times less omnivores are deficient in vitamin B12, okay? So, micronutrients, boom, off the board, debunked, okay? This is how we're going to do this. We're going to kind of fly through some of these because I really want to get to this one, this body fat and diabetes thing, because that's the nail in the coffin for this thing, everybody, I'm telling you. Because I know that most of you are here, most of you got to Clovis because you want to improve body composition. You want more muscles, you want less fat. That's why most people are here, okay? Because of the obesity epidemic. So let's talk about saturated fat causes heart disease. This topic could be 10 AMAs all by itself, so I'm going to kind of hammer through it pretty quickly, okay? I'm going to get right to brass tacks here. We're going to talk about science. Now, a meta-analysis of randomized control trials, these are RCTs, randomized control trials, if you guys remember in my episode of Bad Science, I taught you what trials to look for. Randomized control trials are basically like the Bentley of nutritional studies, of scientific studies, right? So these can actually prove causation. So a meta-analysis of randomized control trials of low carbohydrate diets, high in saturated fat, have shown that they have beneficial impacts on several cardiovascular disease risk markers, including body weight, triglycerides, fasting glucose, blood pressure, body mass index, abdominal circumference, plasma insulin, HDL cholesterol, and C-reactive protein. All of these markers improve on a low carbohydrate, high fat diet, okay? This is super, super important. C-reactive protein, in my opinion, for this heart disease thing, is the most important because we know that cardiovascular disease is an inflammatory issue. Without inflammation, you can't have a cardiovascular event. Inflammation must be present at the scene of the crime. It is necessary to have an event. Now, me, I just did blood work 8 weeks ago, I think it was 8 weeks ago, and my C-reactive protein is below reference range. Literally, I eat pounds of meat, right? And I have no inflammation in my body. Homocysteine, C-reactive protein, both below reference ranges. I have like virtually zero inflammation in my entire body. I never have joint pain, I never have inflammation, I never have any skin conditions. I don't wash my face, nothing. I just like, it doesn't, my skin always looks like this. I just have zero inflammation in my body, okay? Really not a big deal. So let's keep going with this. An exhaustive review of studies involving more than 600,000 participants concluded that, and this is a direct quote, current evidence does not clearly support cardiovascular guidelines that encourage high consumption of polyunsaturated fatty acids and low consumption of total saturated fats, end quote. This whole game right here, saturated fat causes heart disease, therefore there's saturated fat in meats, therefore red meat causes heart disease, it's all nonsense, okay? Because what they're saying here is this comparison of the Mediterranean diet. Like, you need to drink olive oil from a jug, and you need to only eat fish and not eat any red meat for cardiovascular health. No, they're saying directly that an exhaustive review of studies involving more than 600,000 participants shows that that is not true. Now, because of all this evidence, the government, very quietly, back in 2015 this happened, removed the cholesterol limit, daily cholesterol limit, from their dietary guidelines. They removed it altogether, meaning that no amount of dietary cholesterol is considered dangerous for cardiovascular disease. They didn't make a peep about this. No PR, no announcement, no ads, no nothing. They just quietly removed it because they didn't want to admit that they had been wrong for 60 years, right? Now, I actually think that this is going to happen with saturated fat as well. I think that at some point, the U.S. government is going to come out and quietly remove saturated fat limits from their dietary guidelines as well, because if they still have it there, they are clearly just being anti-science, and they really should be embarrassed by this, but they're obviously not embarrassed by it. It's ridiculous. Anyway, saturated fat does not cause heart disease. Red meat does not cause heart disease. So that one's off the board. Let's move on to red meat and cancer, okay? Now, I talked about this at length in AMA number 30. So go check out AMA number 30. That's called Bad Science. And I go deep on how to read scientific studies and how to spot bad science. Bad science is everywhere. I talked about relative risk. I talked about correlation versus causation, which we're going to talk about right here in a second. I talked about a bunch of stuff. We talked about epidemiology and observational studies, etc., etc. So right now, we're going to talk about this causation versus correlation piece, because that's where this comes from. Red meat causes cancer. This is all causation versus correlation, or correlation versus causation, okay? Now, observational studies or epidemiology cannot prove causation. So when we're looking at correlation versus causation, if it's an observational study, it can't prove causation. This is impossible. It just can't. So if there's a headline that says something causes something, and then the first paragraph says, observational study shows, they have discredited themselves right from the jump. This is not a scientific study that you can trust or pull any data from, okay? Yet the media will create these headlines from these studies as if they can prove causation. It's insane. This is 100% incorrect, and it's super irresponsible, because it's impossible to prove causation. So they're misleading the public knowingly. Now the journalists might not know, but the scientists that are skewing this data absolutely know. So let me give you an example. This example of quote-unquote red meat causes cancer, okay? Now, generally speaking, a study will be testing for just one thing. It could be an epidemiology study, called an observational study. Subjects are literally just surveyed. These are food questionnaires, right? Often asking the patients to recall all the food that they ate as far back as 30 days. What did you have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the last 30 days? Fill out this questionnaire. We just did a scientific study, everybody. Right? It's insane, okay? So now, one of these groups could be heavy meat eaters, and the other group might rarely consume red meat or never consume red meat, right? This seems harmless enough. You have two different groups of people. The problem is there's a few things to think about here. Now, we've been told for decades, since the 1950s, that red meat and fat are bad for us, right? So, if you think about an average American and picture a heavy meat eater, your brain might automatically picture like a fat guy eating a Big Mac with a large Coke, like Homer Simpson might come to mind, right? Now, when you picture someone who doesn't eat red meat at all, you might picture like a cute little blonde-headed yoga instructor with a size 0 waist who says namaste when she meets you, you know? That's literally what you're going to be picturing. So you see what I'm saying? This is an example of what's called healthy user bias. Now, this means that the subjects who rarely eat meat are probably already pretty health conscious because they're trying to follow mainstream advice from the government and from doctors. They may be more active, so they're not sedentary people. They're probably more selective and purposeful in the foods that they actually do eat. They probably don't drink soda, eat vegetables instead of sugar. They probably don't drink excess alcohol or smoke cigarettes, right? Now, the red meat eaters, these are the people that go against the grain, right? They don't care about mainstream. They don't have any time for their doctor's advice, right? So they're not following mainstream advice, which means they may be less health conscious overall, okay? So are they eating fruit fly? Are they eating a burger with fries every time they consume red meat? Do they smoke cigarettes? Do they regularly drink beer? Do they drink soda? Do they exercise, right? Now, to be clear, I'm not making up this healthy user bias thing because countless studies have actually shown these things. They've shown that people who eat more red meat typically tend to have a higher BMI, they're more likely to be overweight and obese already, they're more likely to smoke cigarettes, they're more likely to be physically inactive, they are far less likely to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, they're actually far less likely to have education beyond a high school education, okay? Now, all of these variables, believe it or not, are actually already associated with higher risk of heart disease and cancer. So it's not possible to isolate red meat as the cause. You can't. Again, causation versus correlation. We also don't know, is all of the red meat in this study, like I talked about at the beginning of the episode, is this red meat pasture-raised and grass-fed? Doubtful, right? None of these variables are controlled for in observational studies. Yet, you may see a headline that says something like, quote, red meat linked to 20% increased risk of cancer, or something like that. Now, they're just willfully deciding that red meat is the cause. It's nonsense, right? So, it would be more accurate to say, quote, red meat possibly associated with an insignificant increased risk of cancer in sedentary individuals who regularly consume refined carbohydrates and sugar, smoke cigarettes, and drink alcohol. End quote. More accurate headline, but that's not a very clickbait headline, is it? It's not going to get the same clicks online. And that's all we're doing in the social media age is paying, okay, this is how clickbait works. These articles use clickbait titles, so you click on them so they can sell ad space on that website for more money. This is literally the concept of clickbait, everybody, and now these studies have fed into clickbait online. So this is absolutely crazy. You cannot cite causation from observational studies, period. There are 0 studies proving causation between red meat and anything bad. I've said this in a bunch of AMAs. Bring me the study that proves that red meat causes cancer definitively, and I'll give you my house. This house. It's quite nice. It's beautiful. I'll leave the whiteboard for you. Bring me that study, and I'll give you my house. Okay? Can't prove causation. It's not going to happen. So that one is off the charts. Okay? Now, another one we have is that animal products are acidic. Okay? Now, this is what I call the acid-alkaline myth. So we're talking about this acid-alkaline hypothesis. Now, I'm not going to go super deep on this because I actually did AMA number 41. It's called the Alkaline Diet, Fact or Fiction. I went deep on this. So I'm just going to quote that AMA directly here and give you a feel for what I talked about in that episode. Now, first and foremost, you must understand that the entire acid-alkaline hypothesis rests on one giant question. And if the answer to that question is no, the entire hypothesis goes out the window immediately. If the answer to that question is yes, then the hypothesis might deserve further exploration. That question is, can the foods that we eat significantly change the pH of our blood? The answer to that question is a definitive no. Now I want to be clear on this. There is not one single study that even kind of proves or even kind of suggests that what we eat affects the pH of our blood, okay? Now, of course, what we eat can impact the pH of our urine. That's a different thing. Urine is only one of the ways that we excrete toxins. That's what the body does with toxins. We get rid of them, okay? So what the body is designed to do. We excrete acidic end products through urine specifically so that they don't end up in the blood. This is a defense mechanism built in. Now, it's the same reason why when we talk about chasing ketones, people want to be in deep ketosis. You could do a blood draw and be in deep ketosis, and then a second later pee on a urine ketone strip and not show any ketones in your urine whatsoever. But you're in deep nutritional ketosis and it's not showing up in the urine strip. Wait a minute, what does that mean? It means that urine does not have anything to do with blood, right? The pH level of your urine does not tell you what the pH level of your blood is. It just doesn't. This is nonsense, everybody. Urine measures excess end products that have been excreted. It doesn't measure what your blood has in it or what your body is using. The human body functions properly in an extremely narrow pH range. So let's get rid of this. So we talked about pH range. Your body operates with a pH of about 7.4, okay? So the human body wants to be right around 7.4 pH. Now, if you go above 7.7 or below 7.0, guess what happens? You die. Seriously. That's how tightly controlled pH levels are in the blood of a human. We want our pH to be at 7.4. Now, if you go above 7.7 or below 7.0, you die. It's essentially a death sentence, okay? So let's think about this from an evolutionary perspective. Now, we have anthropological data that shows us that many hunter-gatherer tribes got as much as 90% of their daily caloric intake from nothing but red meat, which leaves behind acidic end products when we digest it, okay? Because all foods are made of carbon. So, think about it this way. If they were getting 90% of their daily calories from an acidic food, and it could affect their blood pH, do you think we would still be here as a species? No, of course not. If a tiny swing up or down in blood pH means almost certain death, then it would not make much sense to design the human body in a way that eating the wrong types of food can kill us almost immediately. That makes zero sense, everybody. What the hell are we talking about? Now, if we take that even further, I'll give you an extreme example. There is a substance that you could ingest that could significantly impact your blood pH. That substance is called baking soda. Now, if you were dumb enough to ingest a boatload of baking soda, it could impact your blood pH. However, you would get violently ill and puke and go to the bathroom and get that stuff out of your body in any way, shape, or form possible long before your blood pH was ever impacted. Again, yet another defense mechanism of the body to maintain the narrow blood pH of 7.4. This acid-alkaline myth is just that, a complete and utter myth. It does not matter that meat has acidic end products. It doesn't matter. It will remove, the body will remove the toxin before the blood pH is ever impacted. Okay? So, here we go. Meat is acidic. See ya. Done. That one's done as well. Okay? Now, the environment thing I'm going to touch on really quickly. So, this would literally be its own AMA, and I actually have decided that I'm going to do its own AMA for this at some point, for sure. But I want you to check out AMA number 60. It's called The Soil Will Save Us, and I talk about ecosystems, destruction of ecosystems for monocropping, for grains and vegetables, right? Monocropping, which kills billions of animals a year. I'm not even kidding. Literally kills billions of living creatures a year. You can check out my interview with Diana Rogers on the Clovis Culture podcast, which was great. So I'm going to give you one little bit of a mind bender, and then I'm going to move on from here, okay? Now, the definition of the word vegan is not what you think it is. If you Google definition vegan right now, you're going to find the definition that the vegans changed it to that they want you to see. It's like, vegan is somebody who doesn't eat animal products. I don't eat meat. Namaste. Right? Okay? So, this is what happens with vegans. They actually change the definitions of things. But if you were to go back to the original definition of vegan, which is okay? Veganism is a philosophy. So let me give you the original definition. Quote, a philosophy and way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practical, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose, and by extension, promotes the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of animals, humans, and the environment. In dietary terms, it denotes the practice of dispensing with all products derived wholly or partly from animals. End quote. Okay, this is basically a definition of do least harm, right? Don't kill animals so that you can live. Now, here's the mind bender. When we use that strict definition of veganism, according to that strict definition, carnivores who only eat ethically raised animals are technically more vegan than vegans. What? Yeah, for real. I'm going to leave you with that mind bender. Because a person who eats meat, only ethically raised meat, like I said, I could kill one cow, a happy, healthy cow who grows into old age and then is killed. He can feed me for 1 year easily. Now, a vegan, to create a monocrop system, would have to kill thousands of animals to feed themselves. Therefore, carnivores technically more vegan than vegans. I'll leave you to think about that. Ridiculous, right? Anyway, love and myths, everybody. So let's get rid of the bad for the environment one. I'm going to erase these because I'm probably going to need a whiteboard for this. So now we're going to get into red meat causing weight gain, fat gain, and or diabetes. This is the most horrific one to me because this is actually a big factor in the obesity epidemic. Protein plays a huge role in the obesity epidemic because it has been so villainized in our society. Okay, so let's chat about this. Remove this. All right, I can slow down a little bit now. I just felt like I was going to way run out of time, but this is probably the most important piece. This is probably the piece that you guys actually care about more than anything else because obesity is a huge problem, chronic disease is a huge problem, and I'm going to outline for you the amazing role that protein can play. Protein is basically magic when it comes to nutrition, okay? So we're going to talk about this. Now the myth is that red meat causes weight gain and or diabetes. There's a lot to this one because these myths get thrown around a lot by a ton of different camps. This isn't just vegans and vegetarians. Now, the vegan propaganda really went nuts with this after the fictional documentary film, What the Health, right? I'm sure you guys watched What the Health and were like, oh my God, this is crazy, Justin, what do we do? I know that because I got a boatload of emails about it, right? And then Chris Kresser and Rob Wolf and Dave Asprey and all the biggest names in this space had to come out and debunk this giant piece of shit that Netflix put out, okay? That's what happened. It's all been completely debunked. Now, in What the Health, they straight up claim that red meat causes type 2 diabetes and that sugar does not. Why would they do this? Because they're fucking morons. That's why. Straight up, okay? They are a group of grade A genuine assholes. And I'm not kidding about this. I mean this seriously because if you look it up, some of the people that were behind the creation of What's the Health have actually gone to jail. They've been arrested for assault and battery. They have showed up to places where people eat meat. They have these pies where they sprinkle cayenne pepper on them and smash it into meat eaters' faces. They try to get cayenne spice in their eyeballs. They want to injure them. They are total assholes. The only thing that I wish is that I was somewhere in public and that those filmmakers tried to put a pie in my face because it would be one of the greatest days of my life and some of the most fun that I've ever had on a random afternoon. Okay? But it's probably not going to happen. Anyway, I digress. These people genuinely lack even a base level understanding of human biochemistry. Even a base level. They know nothing about the human metabolism, okay? So the vegans claim that red meat gives you diabetes. And a lot of other camps, another camp that I'm going to name that drives me crazy, this is what I call Internet Keto. Internet Keto is a huge problem, in my opinion, for the obesity epidemic and for a number of other things, including inflammation, okay? So Internet Keto drives me nuts. These are the people that are like, go to Wendy's and eat ketogenic. Yeah, amazing, right? So that kind of stuff, okay? So Internet Keto does this as well. They will lead you to believe that excess protein somehow turns into glucose in the system and will kick you out of ketosis and make you fat. But then they'll tell you in the same breath that it's okay to drink feedlot heavy cream through a straw with every meal. More assholes, I tell you, right? But anyway, so I've explained this in multiple AMAs. This is a real thing. It's called gluconeogenesis. However, protein is not just magically converted into glucose for no reason. Protein is converted to glucose based on the energy demands put upon the body, okay? So the body will convert protein to glucose on an as-needed basis through gluconeogenesis. Protein doesn't just magically behave like chocolate cake in your veins for no reason, right? Everyone's obsessed with protein's gonna kick me out of ketosis and I'm gonna gain body fat because I got kicked out of ketosis. It's ridiculous. This is internet keto nonsense, okay? Now, instead of me going into my opinions on this, I'm actually going to wrap this. I have a lot of notes here. I'm going to wrap this episode with studies. Studies on protein. And as you know, because I outlined at the beginning of this episode, red meat is hands down the most bioavailable way to obtain nutrients and amino acids. Proteins are amino acids. Amino acids linked together create proteins, okay? So if we're talking about protein studies, the best way for you to get that protein and the benefits yielded from consuming that protein is to consume red meat, period. Again, do yourself a favor, get yourself 100% grass-fed, ethically raised, pasture-raised animals, 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised. Do that. Find a farmer and that treats his animals well. Go ahead and do that. But we're going to talk about these studies on protein, and I highly recommend that you get this protein from red meat, okay? Now, throughout all of human history, humans have struggled to find energy, not protein, okay? So you guys have heard me talk about this before. There are really two classes of macronutrients. So we have protein and we have energy. Energy is fat and carbohydrates. Protein is its own thing, right? So yes, there are three macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrates, but really it's protein and energy. Energy is its own thing. So throughout all of human history, all of our time as hunter-gatherers, right? Let's say 315,000 years or whatever it is. Throughout all that time, the biggest scarcity we had in our hands was energy. This is why agriculture came into play. We could always get our hands on protein because we would eat things that most of you would never dream of eating. We could eat snakes, we could eat bugs, we could eat rabbits, we could eat birds, we could eat deer, we could eat cows, we could eat lizards, anything. Turtles, right? Fish. You could always find protein. Protein was never really scarce for us, but energy was scarce. It was very difficult to come across a good amount of fat besides in red meat. Really, red meat's like the only, if you think about it, salmon and stuff like this, like fish, rabbit starvation. The term rabbit starvation comes from the fact that rabbit meat doesn't have much fat. If you try to subsist on it alone, you would die. So without fat, you die. That's the term rabbit starvation, okay? So energy was always a problem. Protein was never a problem. So agriculture came around to deal with the issue of not having enough energy. Now, in 2019, the problem is far too much energy. Fat and carbohydrates, okay? It's virtually all we eat here in America, thus the obesity epidemic. Now, the thing is, if you take an omnivore, we're all omnivores. We eat meat and we eat plants, okay? If you feed an omnivore carbohydrates and fat together, it will immediately get fatter. If you feed an omnivore protein without carbs and fat, it will immediately get leaner. Obesity is truly that simple. Let's not argue about biochemistry, let's not argue about calories, let's not argue about macros, none of that. That's it. Protein versus energy. Too much energy equals fat. Okay? That's the way that this works. And in my opinion, one of the biggest causes of the obesity epidemic in America is this unfounded fear of red meat. It's insane. Carbs and fat have two completely different storage components in the body. Okay? So glucose is stored in the body as glycogen. And then fatty acids are stored in the body as triglycerides. And this is considered adipose tissue. Sorry for my chicken scratch, right? So this is adipose tissue. Now, glycogen, here's the difference. Glycogen is water soluble. This is stored in the liver and in muscles, okay? Fatty acids are not water soluble, and they're stored in adipose sites, in adipose tissue, this is body fat. Glycogen is 6 times bigger. If we look at glycogen is 6 times bigger than fat. So if you think about it, this is why it is so easy to become obese and so difficult to become The Rock and be super jacked and put a bunch of muscle on your frame. This is why, because of the way that it's stored. It's stored in muscle and liver cells, and it's 6 times bigger. You can fit the same amount of energy in a 6 times smaller space, a space that's 6 times smaller when you're talking about fatty acids, okay? So this is why it's so crazy. This is why obese people look the way they do, and they can just keep growing and growing and growing. It's kind of crazy. Now, glycogen completely controls which energy substrate is being burned in the body. If glycogen stores are full, and you're still eating glucose, you have to burn that glucose because you can't store it. It's too big, okay? If you have less glucose, you will burn fat. I did this in the basics, back to basics fat loss. I think it's AMA number 24 or 25. But I did the whole gas tank analogy. There are 2 gas tanks, okay? This is why the combination of fat and carbs together is the most obesogenic diet on planet Earth. Think Krispy Kreme donuts, right? Pure fat and carbohydrates, pure energy. You're gonna get fat eating that stuff, everybody. I promise you, okay? Now here's the thing. So now I just had to spell that out for you. Protein versus energy, how glucose is stored in the body, how fatty acids are stored in the body, okay? It's completely different. Fat soluble, water soluble, protein and energy. Fat and carbs, big problem for obesity, okay? So let's talk about this. In the last 50 years, as the obesity epidemic has exploded, protein intake in America, average protein intake, has been on a steady decline. So over the past 50 years, we have a protein intake moving from about 14% down to about 12.5%. When I say percentage, I'm talking percentage of total daily calories, okay? So right now, at the peak of our obesity epidemic, about 12.5% of daily calories are coming from protein. Now, I'm going to show you something to give you some context. For quite a while, I have been experimenting with this carnivore type thing, and even prior to carnivore, I was experimenting with what would be considered a very high carbohydrate diet. I mean, a very high protein diet, I'm sorry. I was doing 55% of calories from fat, 35% of calories from protein, and 10% of daily calories from carbs. Then I started experimenting with carnivore, but I still kept that protein at 35%, with the rest of my calories coming just from dietary fat, okay? So let's talk about this. Right now, as of my in-body body measurement this past Monday morning, I am 8.1% body fat. I am eating 35% of my total daily calories from protein. 35% protein, I am at 8.1% body fat. This is the lowest body fat that I've ever been as an adult, okay? Now, let's give you more context. In America, the average body fat percentage is somewhere between 30 and 40% body fat. Average in America, okay? Me, average. 30 to 40% body fat. And we just concluded that the average American is getting 12.5% of their total daily calories from protein. So I want you to just look at this. I am eating almost 3 times as much protein, and my body fat percentage is 4 to 5 times lower than that of an average American. That's interesting stuff, isn't it, everybody? What's going on here? What grade do you have to be in to figure this out? I mean, this obesity epidemic's a real mystery, everybody. Real big mystery, okay? Now, for the studies. We're going to move on from this and my smart-ass snarkiness, and we're going to get into the studies. I'm going to wrap this episode with studies. We're just going to talk about studies of protein intake, really, daily caloric intake. Now, most of these studies, actually, I'm looking at all of them right now. Most of them, most of them are this, so I can just write this. So most of these are comparing 15% daily calories from protein versus 30% daily calories from protein, okay? So most of these studies are comparing 15% protein from calories and 30% protein from calories. The first study I'm going to tell you about compared 15% protein to 30% protein ad libitum libitum. This means as many calories as you want. You can eat as many calories as you want as long as you maintain 30% daily calories from protein for one group and 15% for the other group. Results: the high protein group ate less, lost more weight, and had lower hunger scores, which means a significant impact on your hunger hormones leptin and ghrelin. They also had far fewer cravings when surveyed, okay? Now, let's move on to pre-diabetics. This was a study done just with pre-diabetics, and this one is staggering, okay? So in pre-diabetics, they compared 15% protein to 30% protein. Ad libitum, as many calories as you want, just maintain these macronutrients, which means the fat and carbohydrate macronutrients are also controlled for, right? What happened in pre-diabetics? What the Health documentary? High protein group lost more weight, and the high protein group had a 100% pre-diabetes reversal rate. A 100% pre-diabetes reversal rate. But, according to the vegans, red meat causes cancer, quote unquote. I mean, causes diabetes, okay? Think about that. A 100% reversal rate of pre-diabetes. The people doing the study were baffled. They were like, wait a minute, because prior to that, there had never been a study that had a 100% pre-diabetic reversal rate, okay? 30% daily calories from protein, 100% pre-diabetes reversal. But according to the vegans, red meat causes diabetes. This is nonsense, okay? So let's get off of pre-diabetics and talk about full-blown type 2 diabetics. This is another study done just with type 2 diabetes subjects, comparing 15% protein to 30% protein. Eat as much as you want. Calories ad libitum, right? The high protein group lost more weight. They also had lower blood sugar levels. They also had lower triglycerides. And it measured a 40% drop in glucose levels. How in the world could somebody look at this data and try to claim that red meat causes diabetes? This is absolutely baffling and dishonest, okay? This is crazy. 30% protein, beat the 15% group again. Lost more weight, lower blood sugar levels, lower triglycerides, 40% drop in glucose levels. Crazy, it's like magic, right? Now, we got a couple more. Another study, this was on weight loss management. So we've talked about the roller coaster, right? Everybody does the weight loss roller coaster, up and down, up and down. Oh, I lost all the weight, I gained it back. We talked about the Biggest Loser study, all this weight regain nonsense, right? So they did a study just on weight loss maintenance. They took two groups that had lost weight. They took the one group and kept their diet the same. The other group, all they did, everything else controlled for, everything else the same, they added 48 grams of protein per day. This would be like 1.5 chicken breasts or something, right? Now, mind you, that's an additional 192 calories per day just in protein. 4 months later, the higher protein group had 50% less weight regain. That's staggering. 50% less weight regain by doing nothing except adding 48 grams of protein a day. Again, this is like magic, everybody. Okay? Now, I want to talk about the internet keto people. Okay? We're going to talk internet keto people because this is very important. Traditional ketogenic people, internet keto, they'll tell you to keep your protein from 15 to 20% daily calories from protein. You can't go over 20% because it'll kick you out of ketosis and you'll get fat. Right? Internet keto. Listen to this. They took low carbohydrate people specifically. One low carbohydrate group had 15% daily calories from protein, again 15, and one low carbohydrate group had 30% daily calories from protein. They tracked them for a year. And remember all the times I say Clovis is not keto and how much the low protein advice from internet keto pisses me off. Here's the results. 1 year later, the low carb group with 30% protein, which, mind you, is the Clovis protocol that I give you when you sign up for a custom nutrition plan, 30% daily calories from protein. 1 year later, the low-carb, 30% protein group performed better on every single metric that you could possibly measure. Weight, body fat, insulin, triglycerides, HDL, hunger scores, emotional eating, everything. The 30% protein group destroyed the 15% protein group. They didn't lose a single category. Not one. What are we talking about here? The next time somebody tells you Clovis is keto, promptly kick them in the junk. I'm just kidding. I'm not advocating violence, everybody. That was a joke. Ha ha ha. All right? This is crazy. All right, so one final study. We're going to get into one final study, and then I almost made it at 9 o'clock. I can't believe I crammed this all into an hour after being late, okay? One final study, and this is what we're going to talk about. So, I need my whiteboard for this. Now I'm just going to write these words. Too much protein, okay? Too much protein. There's actually no such thing as too much protein. There are studies out there in athletes that have eaten as much as 600 grams of protein a day with no negative side effects whatsoever. Now again, I can cite all these studies for you guys in the show notes. I can put a collection together. If you'd like me to, I can just do a full-blown page that's just full of why red meat is good for you, right? There's actually no such thing as too much protein. It would be virtually impossible to kill yourself or have really negative impacts happen. What you'd have to do is have some kind of elixir where it's just like protein, or like 1 gram of liquid water, one ounce of water somehow has 200 grams of protein in it, and you were to chug 100 ounces of water, and like it just would be impossible to do, right? You have to do it with synthetic protein. It'd be insane. So there's really no such thing as too much protein, okay? There isn't. So I want to outline this for you. Now there's a caveat here. I'm going to give you one caveat, that this particular study was the effects of high protein on resistance trained individuals. These people were just resistance training a few times a week, which I recommend for Clovis people as well, unless you come to me and you're super overweight and dealing with inflammation and all these things. But eventually, as you guys know, for optimal health, I'm a big fan of resistance training, okay? So that's the one caveat. This study was done in people that were resistance trained. But I'm going to read you the study, okay? Now, first I want you to keep in mind, the RDA, the recommended daily allowance in America for protein, okay? So RDA equals 0.8 kilograms, 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, okay? So the RDA is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So what this study did is they took their subjects and they fed them 4.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. 4.4 grams of protein per kiloweight of body weight. That's a lot of protein. That is 5.5 times the RDA of protein. 5.5 times the recommended amount of protein in a standard American diet. 5.5 times. That's a lot, everybody, okay? Now, fat and carbs, your energy macros, were controlled to be identical. So the only difference, everything else is the same except 5.5 times more protein. And the training volume was controlled to be identical. Everything identical, okay? Guess what happened after 8 weeks? 0 change whatsoever in body composition. To quote the study directly, after 8 weeks, quote, there were no significant changes over time or between groups for body weight, fat mass, fat-free mass, or percent body fat, end quote. Why does this matter, okay? Now, we're just talking neutral. This is 0 change. 5.5 times more protein, okay? 5.5 times more protein. 0 change. Why does this matter? Because we live in America, and everybody still thinks they need to burn calories to lose weight. We still have this calories in, calories out model. Look at this. We're talking calories in, calories out, okay? People still debate this stuff. If we look at this study, let's say the subject that had 4.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight was my size. I weigh 157 pounds right now, okay? 157 pounds, 8.1% body fat. That means if I followed these recommendations, I would be eating an additional 1,014 calories per day just in protein. And after 8 weeks, no increase in body weight or body fat. What? Are we kidding? This whole thing, you gotta lose 3,500 calories to burn 1 pound going to burn, and if you eat 3,500 extra calories, you're going to gain a pound. 1,014 extra calories a day for 8 weeks. No change in body weight, no change in body composition. What are we talking about? This is insane, everybody. So listen to me. When I tell you constantly learn, unlearn, relearn, learn, unlearn, relearn, I mean it. Okay? Sure, I know that most of you kind of take my advice. But the brainwashing runs deep, and I know it runs deep because I do things like post a picture of my 1.75 pound prime rib on the bone on a plate as my dinner on Monday night, and I know that people lose their shit about this, right? There are some of you where part of you in the back of your brain is looking at it going, oh, that just can't be healthy. That just can't be healthy. It's just so much red meat. I don't know, it just can't be healthy. And you guys forget that I do a blood draw every 3 months. A blood draw every 3 months to know what's going on exactly in my body. It's cool, you can admit it. I know, sometimes you see the stuff I do and you think I'm crazy, you still think I'm a psychopath, and you still think that your in-law, who somehow has a nutrition degree, decides that she wants to tell you that all that fat and protein is going to give you cancer and heart disease, right? Learn, unlearn, relearn. This is critically important, everybody. This is one of the most staggering studies I've ever seen in my life. An extra 1,014 calories of pure protein per day, 0 weight gain, 0 body composition change over 8 weeks. How many calories is that? What? What are we doing? Actually, I have a calculator because I need it, okay? So we have 56 days. That's an extra 56,784 calories, everybody. I hope I did that math right. It'd be embarrassing if I didn't. I'm really bad at math. But anyway, I'm telling you guys, you can admit that sometimes you think I'm crazy. I get it. I am kind of crazy. I'm kind of a psychopath, right? It took me years of my own research, years to get all the nonsense government mainstream programming out of my head. I still thought that calories were the answer. I still thought that all that protein can't be good for me. Every time I put NCT oil in a smoothie, I was like, God, I'm just drinking so much fat. Oh my God, really? They're telling me I'm not going to get fat. I don't believe them. I don't believe them, man. I'm drinking fat through a straw. I'm going to get fat. You know, it took me years to get over this shit. I know it's going to take you guys years to get over it too. Don't worry, you'll get there if you stick with me. Perseverance. I know there are people beating down your door every day telling you that you're wrong for your crazy Clovis diet after you've lost 60 pounds and they somehow think you're a nutcase, right? It's insane, okay? Freedom is just around the corner, okay? As long as you are willing to unlearn first. Unlearn. Unlearn. Learn. Unlearn. Relearn. AMA number 75, ladies and gentlemen. Red meat myths. Let's jump into some questions. Let's jump into some comments. I love that we did this episode. Love this one. Love this study. Right? Amazing. Amazing. Guys, I have been eating about 3,500 calories of straight meat for weeks now. And I almost can't keep weight on. I'm 8.1% body fat. This is nuts. This is insanity. I have nothing on. I can't pinch anything. I got nothing. It's crazy. And I feel like $1 million, right? I mean, I'm telling you guys, if we could just get this bullshit about red meat being bad for you, if we could just stop that, the obesity epidemic, we could make a huge dent in it almost overnight. I'm telling you, everybody. This is really... it's important stuff, okay? If you're afraid of red meat, you shouldn't be. Let's dive into some comments. Michelle, I've been doing carnivore. Awesome. I've been doing carnivore and eating so much meat and I'm losing weight. It's amazing and it's insane. Yes, that's the thing. And this idea of a caloric deficit, protein also happens to be the most satiating macronutrient. You will eat less automatically. As we saw in all of the 15 and 30% studies, every single one of them, the high protein group, actually ended up eating less. So the macronutrient ratios were still the same, but total caloric intake ended up being less. Why? Because of satiation, because of the way this works with your hunger hormones. It's very difficult to overeat protein. I can tell you that right now, because I'm trying to eat over 3,000 calories of it a day, and it's super difficult, okay? I'm doing it just to biohack and be an experiment, and I got a big, heavy training day tomorrow. I'm going to burn my body out lifting weights, and then I'm going to eat a whole bunch of meat. I just like experimenting. I'm a biohacker. You don't need to be. Don't do what I do. Don't, okay? But I'm going to do a lot of crazy things, and I'm going to report back to you with my findings, because I like doing this stuff. Or joke, I don't know how to say your name, I'm sorry. Although I love meat, believe in high protein diets more effective for losing weight, have these studies addressed phenylketonurics, which are dangerous for diabetic people? I'm going to tell you right now, I have no idea what that is. Let me see if I can look it up. Boom, let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about here. Let's see. Nope, I got no results found in the dictionary. Sorry. If I knew what that was, I could address it, but I honestly have no idea. That's the first time I've ever heard that word. What else we got here? Okay, louder, we're back to... You guys have been quiet tonight. What do you guys want to talk about? Give me some comments. Hit me with some comments so I don't have to wrap this thing up. I just want to know your thoughts on this, your take on this, because I'm telling you, it's like, I know sometimes... You guys have to remember, too, so I don't even know how many hundreds of people have bought custom nutrition plans from me at this point. It's well over 700 people. So I'm constantly in the thick of this. I'm doing social media messages, I'm doing emailing, I'm doing direct messages on Instagram and all this stuff. And I know, guys, I love you and I want you to be happy, okay? And I know a lot of you are still really concerned about this stuff. You really are. You go to your conventional doctor and he gets in your head. Well, you're doing this thing and it's scary and it's blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? It's just, it's ridiculous. Like, don't let these people get in your head. This is insane, right? Do you still do PPP with your carnivore? Currently, right now, I do not. No, so here's another thing, Michelle. Definitions, okay? If I were doing PPP, I would be an omnivore. I would not be a carnivore, okay? So we have to be clear about that. So understand that if you guys want to do like an actual carnivore experiment, people are like, hey, I'm carnivore. And they're like, but I'm drinking tea and I'm using garlic and I'm drinking black coffee and I'm eating some mushrooms and I have an avocado every day. You're not carnivore. You're just not. You are not. These are just technical definitions. So you can say you're carnivore-ish, right? Like, I think carnivore paleo powder would be amazing. And I guarantee you paleo powder is going to be a long-term part of my plan. Again, this is an experiment for me. I don't need to be carnivore. I know that I don't need to be carnivore. I like experimenting with it because I like to teach you guys about it. And again, I don't tell you to do anything that I haven't already done, okay? So I like to just experiment with these things. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be 100% carnivore for the rest of my life. I guarantee you that. That's not going to happen. I like red wine way too much, right? I love coffee. I love coffee. So I went strict carnivore with no coffee, no nothing. And right now, I'm actually doing carnivore with black coffee. That's the only thing I'm doing that is not carnivore. An amino acid metabolic disorder that's characterized by a mutation in the gene for hepatic enzyme phenylalanine. Let's see. I mean, I'm no expert, but based on what I just pulled up on that, I would not be concerned about it. Now, I am not a doctor. I don't play one on the internet. I am not giving you medical advice. None of this is medical advice. If you have a question that specific, then you're going to have to talk to somebody about that, but just know that a conventional doctor is going to shut you down right away. And then you also need to think about what is actually a high-protein diet, because this is an extremely high-protein diet. 4.4 grams per kilogram body weight is insanity. That's like well over 350 grams of protein a day for somebody like me. I can do the math on it really quick. So let's see, 157 divided by 2.2 equals times 0.4. Yeah, it's 314 grams of protein a day for me, right? That's a very high protein diet, okay? But the thing you have to think about is some people think that like more than 20% of daily calories from protein is a high protein diet. That's what your conventional doctor is going to tell you. You see what I mean? So like if you're eating 70% of your daily calories from protein, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have a real energy problem because you need more fat than that to live. But a properly constructed ketogenic or high protein diet would work. This is why I hate internet keto, because ketogenic is fantastic, right? When used therapeutically, when set up properly, a well-constructed keto diet. Internet keto, completely different thing. It's mostly nonsense, mostly bullshit, okay? So what you need to understand here is that I would definitely work with a healthcare professional and try to figure this stuff out, preferably a functional medicine doctor, but understand there is no immediate risk of red meat. Now you're talking about a specific amino acid, some kind of metabolic issue that I'm not familiar with at all. I'm certainly not a geneticist, like I'm not a specialist in genetics or anything like that, but you would have to do some digging around. I have a friend that is diabetic and is afraid of doing high protein diet because, yeah, but why have you, I'm sure your friend hasn't tried it, right? So these people just have these fears of things. I'm afraid of this. Why? like, is your friend an expert in genetics and understands this phenylketonuria? I don't know if that's how you say it. Phenylketonuria, maybe. But that's the thing, is just figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, go do some research, see what other people have done, look up Reddit forums, search for carnivore phenylketonuria, right? Just literally type in Google, carnivore and that word, right? We can do it right now as an experiment. You guys just gotta be, you know, just look around you, you know, and see what happens when you start poking around. So let's see, I'm gonna copy and paste that word so I spell it correctly. This is all you gotta do, everybody. It's just be willing to explore, right? Alright, so you got questions about phenylalanine. Doesn't seem to be much about carnivore and this particular thing. So I would just do some digging around. You can get on Reddit. You could look on carnivore forums on Reddit. Search that word, search it on Google, all those things. Just start poking around. It's interesting. I could dig into it a little bit more if you wanted to, or if your friend wanted to work with me, get a custom nutrition plan, I'd certainly be willing to dig into that. If I didn't know it, I can put your friend in touch with a functional medicine doctor who might know it. But if I don't know things, I cannot even pretend that I'm going to give you advice on that right now. But yeah, you know, there's always going to be outliers, right? So this is the other thing, is just claiming like that just diabetics blanketly have to worry about this. No, we literally I just cited studies for pre-diabetics and diabetics on a 13% protein diet, 100% reversal for pre-diabetics, and improved markers on everything for full-blown type 2 diabetics, okay? So we're talking type 2 and pre-diabetics. So anyway, I'm just saying, odds are it's not a problem. If I had to guess, it's really not a problem. There could be some rare gene that's, you know, my niece has a severe genetic disorder. She's one of 96 in the world. There's always going to be outliers. You know what I mean? But yeah, great question, and I hope you look into it. If you look into it, let me know. Shoot me an email, justin@imclovis.com. Let me know what you find out. What else we got, everybody? Any questions about protein? Any questions about red meat? RDAs, grams and kilograms and body weight and Justin's body fat percentage? You guys have anything you want to talk about? I'm going to make sure this podcast, yeah, there we go. Okay, podcast is still running. All right, guys, if you don't have any questions, then we're going to move on. We're gonna wrap up AMA number 75. I'm calling this one Red Meat Myths. Red Meat Myths. This will go up on the podcast. Also, check out the Clovis Culture podcast. I released the episode with Hillary Boynton, who is the lunch lady. She runs a farm-to-table school lunch program in Topanga, California at the Manzanita School. It's a beautiful conversation. We talk about childhood nutrition. We talk about farm-to-table school lunch programs. We talk about parenting. We talk about a whole bunch of stuff, and I get super opinionated and super bummed. There's a long intro. I actually tell the story of my niece Savannah. So if for nothing else, if you want to know the actual story of my niece Savannah and her seizure disorder and her actual, like we're talking about right now, genetic condition, that's an actual issue with a potassium channel in her brain. It's a seizure disorder. You can take a look at that podcast where I actually give a whole, basically like a 10-minute story of Savannah and the role she played in Clovis and the Perfect Paleo Powder and all that. Finally got that kind of out and off my chest after a lot of debating with myself back and forth if I was going to get into that story. But I'm glad that I did, and Hillary's glad that I did, and that episode is doing well so far. So thank you guys for downloading that. That's on the Clovis Culture podcast. You know what? I'll give you a link. I don't think I have a link right now. Crap, because I closed everything. But anyway, yeah, just go to clovis.show/lunchlady. Clovis.show/lunchlady. And you can look up Hillary's episode. It's on iTunes, Spotify, all the other things, the Clovis Culture Podcast. Yes, click the love button. Click the love. Click the happy face. Click the smiley face. Click the thumbs up button. Click the angry face, the sad face if you learned some stuff that really ticked you off today, which tends to happen on these AMAs. But again, guys, if you have somebody who is like super overweight in your life, just have them watch just this AMA. They don't even necessarily need a custom nutrition plan. I just want to help people. That's it, right? So it's like, it doesn't need to be the whole approved foods list and all this thing. It's just like, just help them understand this stuff. Show them this and show them my AMA that's back to basics, human metabolism, where I literally just walk through how the human metabolism works, right? Because these episodes, you can remove the dogma. It's not about paleo, keto, carnivore, vegan, vegetarian, omnivore. It's just what works, right? So anyway, that's it, guys. This is AMA number 75, Red Meat Myths. Thank you guys so much for being here. It really means the world to me. Thank you for being patient with me while I was a little bit late. I'm going to wrap this one up. It's already 9:18. Whoa, okay. I got a date with my sauna, everybody. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow in the Facebook Live groups. the private groups, I Am Clovis and the Clovis Academy. You guys are awesome. Mike, thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. Michelle, thank you. I don't wanna butcher your name. Radoka. I'm sorry. I wish I knew how to say your name, but thank you. Thank you for the great question. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Thank you, everybody. You guys are awesome. Have a great night. Rewatch this if you want to. Oh, click the share button. Click the share button. Share this on your timeline. Tag your friends who need to see this, who need to know about protein. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. AMA number 75, Red Meat Myths. I'm Justin Nault. I'm out. Have a good night. Bye.